Thank you for once again being a part of Heart of a Shepherd. I hope that you've enjoyed this brief study of the Song of Solomon. And we are wrapping it up today with Song of Solomon, chapter 6 and 7. Now, the title of our devotional is What Beautiful Feet, My Love. Again, I invite you to open your Bible, follow with me as we briefly look at chapter 6 and 7. Now, we are continuing our love story as Solomon's bride dreamed she searched for her husband throughout the city, not knowing she was the bride of the king. The watchmen of the city had mistreated her in her dreams, and the daughters of Jerusalem had scoffed when she asked, "Find my beloved, tell him that I am sick of love," literally love sick, in chapter 5 and verse 8. Of course, this was a dream, and none would dare mistreat the king's wife. Now, look with me briefly at Song of Solomon chapter 6, and we ask the question, who was this wonderful, beautiful bride? Well, through eyes of pure love, she described Solomon's physical appearance to the maidens of Jerusalem, who asked in the bride's dream, "Whither is thy beloved gone? Or thou, O thou fairest among women, whither is thy beloved turned aside, that we may seek him with thee?" Song of Solomon chapter 6 and verse 1. And finally, she found her husband in verse 2 in his royal gardens, and rejoiced in his love, saying in verse 3, "I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine." Then notice with me verses 4 through 10, where we have recorded Solomon's loving assurances. The king then, we find in verse 4, extolled the beauty of his bride and compared her to two beautiful walled cities of Israel, draped with stunning banners. Looking into her eyes, Solomon found himself captivated in verse 5, and in verse 5 also, that her hair was thick and flowing like the wool of the goats in Gilead. He gushed over her and assured her she was preferred more than a harem of 80 queens and 80 concubines and virgins without number. Why? For she, unlike any other, was undefiled. She was the object of not only her mother's praise, but also that of the daughters of Jerusalem, and queens and concubines. In Song of Solomon chapter 7, Solomon's admiration of his bride's beauty is recorded. As we continue our study, remember, I've suggested 3 methods of interpretation for the Song of Solomon. The allegorical interpretation that would suggest the Song of Solomon describes God's relationship with his people and is a parable. Another is a typical interpretation that would suggest the bride of Solomon was a type and picture of the church. The groom was a type or picture of Christ. The third interpretation is a literal one. It suggests this was a true love story and describes Solomon's love for a young Shulamite girl who became his queen. Now notice, if you would, chapter 7 and verses 1 through 9, where I would just suggest a bridal description. And now, with the blush of her innocence and virtue entrusted to her husband, Solomon looked upon the physical beauty of his wife with pride and satisfaction. He expressed in verse 6 his delight in his bride, and he boasted, writing, "How fair and how pleasant art thou, O love, for delights." In his eyes, verse 7, she was stately like a palm tree, and he tenderly assured her of his love. Notice verses 10 through 13. What I would suggest is a bride secure in her husband's love. With loving trust, she abandoned herself to her husband, and she invited Solomon to take her away, saying, verse 12, "Let us lodge in the villages, get up early to the vineyards. There will I give thee my loves." A closing thought. There's a phrase that says, "Love is blind," and some attribute it to William Shakespeare, who employed it several times in his plays. However, the phrase first appeared in 1405 in Milton Chaucer's Merchant Tale, where he wrote, "Love is blind all day and may not see." Another author, Pauline Thomason, has suggested a different perspective that's humorous. It says love is blind, but marriage is the eye opener. Well, permit me to close with an observation of my own. Solomon was certainly not blind, for not one detail of his young wife's beauty escaped his eye. From her sandaled feet in verse 1 to her long locks of hair in verse 5, he prized her beauty. She had the tanned skin of a peasant, the callous hands of a laborer, but the beauty and virtuous character of a princess. Solomon was in love, and love does not count the blemishes of one's beloved. How about the love of your life? Is your romance vibrant and your courtship still alive? What a wonderful way to sum up today's study for us to take into account how we are treating the object of our love. Well, God bless you, and thank you for being a part of our daily devotion. Bye-bye.